Hey y'all, it's the tax lien strategist. It's kind of late, but I promised someone I would make this video tonight. Um, Before I call it an evening, welcome to another episode of the Tax Lien Strategist by V. I'm really enjoying this channel podcast on YouTube. I've had podcasts on SoundCloud and Spotify for a lot of years. This one I like because more people can access it, especially seniors who need to know, because YouTube app is the default on the phone. I spent today in constitutional law classes all day because of a very important topic I needed to know. Some things. Now, people do understand that I'm not an attorney. I don't profess to be. I'm a property retention business. But we make sure Black people retain their properties and not lose them to title and deed theft. And even if someone loses their property to auction, if the investor doesn't follow the law and abide by what the law says they have to do, meaning the redemption period, then we actually get those properties back into the hands of the families, and we help them find out what they need to help them get situated and restarted back in their homes. Adverse possession is a foundation for a lot of this that they do in terms of steal property. And that's why I tell people in my tax lien investing courses, when I'm teaching Black people how to invest in tax lien properties, all of this is based on state law, but you have to know some constitutional law because we're dealing with thieves, okay? We're dealing with thieves. And you have to understand, thieves don't obey the law. They get some kind of a joy out of going around the law and not playing by the rules and not doing what they're supposed to do, because there's a sense of entitlement that a lot of thieves feel. On top of stealing from Black people, they have to do that because they fear us getting closer. Now, you can read this anywhere. There is a huge wealth gap now. Aside from the fact that they have our reparations in their pockets, and the fact that generation wealth, one of the biggest forms of wealth is land. And they're not going to be satisfied until everything is we have nothing. And this is why I beg Black people to hold on to their land. It's very important. You have no idea, because you're so busy assimilating and believing you have allies. Nothing wrong with assimilating. But you really believe you have allies, and you don't even question anything, ask people to prove anything. And so we're relishing in that and not paying attention. But I don't do a lot of talking to my people in open spaces. We do that in closed spaces. I don't drag my folk in, but I do admonish my people about things that I know that I can talk to them about. And but I will say that much. That we got to do a better job of paying attention and quit thinking that we have allies. So I want to talk about adverse possession real quick, because that is the foundation of a lot of this theft in different ways. I talk about quiet title suits a lot. Well, quiet title suits is the action behind the law of adverse possession. And I'll make the connection. This is going to be several parts. I'll do one part tonight, simply because I have to draw a picture as to what I mean. When we had our workshop, Saturday. Everyone in the workshop was like, I finally get it. I hear about quiet title action. I hear about adverse possession, but I couldn't make the connection. Okay, so I explained to them that, you got to understand something. A lot of these Europeans that were kicked out of Europe, well, a lot, they were castaways. They were, kicked out. They were criminals. They were, career criminals. It's history. Read it for yourself. The worst of the worst. So you can't be the founder of a country that was already founded. But of course, they got here and they saw vast amount of land, and they knew Indians were here. Well, some people are just really big on disrespect, and they didn't want to respect the Indians, and so it came to them that they should get land. So when they founding fathers, please, but they did form levels of government at some point but it was to control the people already here. But I'm not going to take up a lot of time on this video, because I'll be inserting and talking about those things along the way in all the videos that I do on this. Probably going to be a third part, but let's see. Okay, so I made some notes today in the constitutional law class, and my notes. So I'm going to read, which I'm good at that because I just have so much in my head. I will get off topic and get on something else and try to come back to it. So the real history. This is what I told my people in the workshop Saturday. I wanted to let them know how this started. The real history of adverse possession is deeply tied to colonialism, land theft, and legal systems designed, listen to this, to convert informal or communal ownership into private property, especially in the context of European expansion. So I said, let me just break this down by tracing the origin of it, okay? The origin of adverse possession has feudal roots. It's what I learned today in the class with the law. I sat with the lawyers today. Adverse possession comes from English common law. It was developed during the feudal era to encourage productive land use. The idea was simple. If land was sitting idle and someone else occupied it openly and used it for years while the legal owner did nothing, then the squatter should eventually have a right to it. Not surprised by this, by the thinking of the people who established certain laws and called it the law of the country that hadn't even been founded yet. This logic assumed a landowner had obligations to maintain and control land, and failure to do so could cause a transfer of rights. Now, somebody would say, oh, well, this is great, this is grand. It's how you use property. No, it's how you steal property, because could have been another way. There could have been another way that they could have done this. But anyway, it's done. We ain't here to talk about all that. It's done. Okay? Colonial context, theft, disguised as law. When the British brought their legal system to the colonies, they imported adverse possession. But now it had sinister implications. Native lands were vacant or unused under colonial definitions. So if settlers lived on them, farmed them, and weren't challenged because native people were killed and displaced, so how are you going to challenge somebody? Or lacked legal standing, those settlers could claim legal ownership under adverse possession or similar doctrines. Courts easily recognized indigenous systems of land tenure. Key takeaways: adverse possession was used to legalize occupation of land that had been unlawfully seized or stolen. Listen to me again. Adverse possession was used to legalize the occupation of land that had been unlawfully seized or stolen. So, the property was stolen unlawfully, but adverse possession was used to legalize the colonization. Okay? Post-Revolution America now, we're there now. Weaponized adverse possession. In the U.S., adverse possession became part of the broader project of transforming land into marketable private property. It cured title defects on a legal system where surveying was imperfect and titles were often unclear. It helped settlers solidify claims to land acquired informally or illegally. In places like Texas, California, and the Midwest, squatters, and they were the ones that were white settlers, used adverse possession to claim land from both native people and Mexican landowners. It also reinforced a violent truth that law doesn't always mean justice, okay? Legal doctrines like adverse possession often reward those who are seen as powerful. It's not about fairness. We got to remember that, Black people. Modern significance of this: adverse possession today is still used to clear up titles, especially in urban areas or with air property. But its history is not neutral. It served as a tool to turn colonialism into legitimate ownership. It legitimized land loss by people who were excluded from legal process, including indigenous people, formerly enslaved Black people, and poor rural communities. Now here's a real world example. In the post-Civil War South, newly freed Black families occupied and cultivated land. When Reconstruction failed and white landowners returned, sometimes with government force, they reclaimed land, even if Black families had occupied it for years. But the law rarely protected the Black possessors, even though they met the conditions of adverse possession. The courts were not neutral. They upheld racial hierarchies. So adverse possession was only just when applied to those already seen as deserving under white supremacist norms. Ain't nothing changed. The conclusion: legal fiction serving power. I write books, so I'm always thinking of topics and of chapters. Adverse possession is a legal fiction meant to create order, but whose order? It reflects the state's desire to put land into economic use, a disregard for communal, indigenous, or informal landholding systems, and a history of land and the theft of it made legal by erasing the original owner's claim, often through violence or exclusion from the legal process. Here's the thing. Because we understand the law and we understand this, we're able to do our work. Okay? I can't do this to everyone I speak with. People won't understand it. The bottom line is that your property is taken in different ways. And laws continue to be made and continue to be, can't even think of the word right now, but added to, y'all know what I'm talking about, changed, And we have to keep up with that. I'm not an attorney, but I do this. I coach people on how to help themselves when they're in court. And one reason the property owner can do that is because he knows his own property. He knows the history of his own property. He takes care of the history of the property. I take care of making sure I tell them what the lawyers say to do and to think and to read, and the lawyers tell me what to say to them. There's a lot of new things on the horizon. Things have just happened like a whirlwind the last couple of days. Really happy about it. Not going to reveal anything just at the moment, but some great things have happened. I've had some black women's lawyer organizations contact me. They love what we do. They're very, very, very anxious to talk. I wasn't able to talk to them today, but I got them numbers. I am going to. And a couple more organizations that want to help. I'm going to be showing people how to go into the court system and find out exactly the things that were the steps that these predatory investors took in order to take property in these gentrified areas here in Harris County. I can almost bet I continue to see where they have not done the things that the law says they're supposed to do, because they just don't expect to have to give up these properties. They don't expect to be in this position. They don't expect that they have to pay people, recovery money. They don't expect. They're so used to taking. They're so used to seeing us as unworthy. Okay? So, I don't know if I'm going to make another one tonight, but I'm probably going to be 4 parts. This is just kind of like an intro to this. We're going to really get into some things about adverse possession. Oh, and one more thing. Adverse possession, let me break it down even further. Let's say that you have a survey and you move on a property and you have a survey and you lived on that property for 30 years, paid the taxes, it has a fence, paid the taxes, took care of the property, everything. And 20, 30 years later, a neighbor moves in and comes and says, hey, I have a survey here and it says that your property encroaches, let's say, I don't know, I can't think right now, but 20 inches this way, or just saying that the person who was there first, their fence line is over on the neighbors, taking up some of the neighbors' boundaries of his property. That's when you claim adverse possession, squatters' rights. That's when the laws of squatters' rights apply. Okay? You've lived there for more than 10 years. You've maintained the property. You pay the taxes. You've lived in it openly. And when the law says with hostility, it doesn't mean you're angry. It means that without the owner's permission. If the owner gives you permission to be there, it's not adverse possession. Okay? But these people who are stealing property in court are not doing that because they're not expected to be challenged. But anyway, that is a prime modern day example of squatters' rights, of adverse possession, and what it's supposed to mean. Not this shit, not this crap that they're doing today trying to get, but people can take the law. And that's the point I'm trying to make. People can take the law. That law can be used for good or it can be used the way they're using it. Okay? So it just depends on who it is and how they're using it. Most of these loopholes to the law can be used by anyone for good. But if we don't have our money, if we don't have our reparations, then we may not be able to possess property by squatting on it. Although I show black people how to own property by adverse possession, and we've been really successful at that. But I make sure they do everything legally and lawfully. So I don't want them to come back and telling me, oh, Miss B, you told me what. No, I'm going to teach you what the law says. But see, the thing is, there are loopholes. And so The people come up with loopholes to serve themselves. They never expect us to use them, use them, for our good. Because if we use these laws for our good, then that means that they can't use them for what they want them, what they want them for. So I'm going to end this now. Man, time sure goes fast on these videos. It's already been 20 minutes. Wow, it's a big one. It's going to take a while to upload it. Let me just go ahead and end this. Oh, and I want to thank, he knows who he is. He says, I love your content, but you keep talking about how, you don't know how to work, how to set everything up. I'll be glad to come out. And, I got a building now, and I just found a commercial building for our workspace. When I get ready to start doing the work in there, I'll take you up on your offer. Thank you so much for offering. That's nice of you to offer to have everything set up and teach me some things. I love to learn and teach me some things. I'll give you a call and we'll talk further. But I'm going to end this here. I may do one more and then do the rest within the next day or so we can really understand this channel, this podcast, and where this is going. Y'all have a good evening, and I'll talk to you on the next one.